Okay, here we are at Grandma and Grandpa's place, the farm. It's the 11th of January 2019, New Year, and this is going to be, this story is going to be called My Brother Ben.
When we were married in Virginia, we wanted to go on a little bit of honeymoon, and so we went up to. I wanted to show off Talmadge to my brother Ben because Ben and I were very, very close. He was a college classmate with me. We were roommates in the same apartment. We grew up together, double dated together many, many, many times.
He was just younger than you.
Just younger, year and a half younger than I. So anyway, we went on our honeymoon, and Ben had been sick and prior to this.
On his mission?
Almost died.
Okay.
And so he was.
He had meningitis.
Yeah, spinal meningitis is what it was that got him, and so it really did affect him. He almost got sent home because of it, but he didn't. He hung out and got better, and so anyway, we went up to see him. After we were accepted into dental school, he was still on his mission, and we were in Portland, Oregon. I think it was our second year of dental school. Ben didn't have a home to come to, just like I didn't have a home to come to. And by that time, Dad had remarried. And
who did he marry?
Elmira
Bigelow.
Okay.
Bigelow, yeah.
She was from Arizona.
Okay.
And they were temple workers in the Arizona temple is how they met. Well, anyway, so Ben reported his mission somewhere. I don't know where he went from and where he reported back to, probably Bountiful.
Okay.
But then came directly on up and lived with us in Portland there. And we had a girl all picked out. Ann Iverson is her name. She was really a choice gal and good looking. And anyway, Ben hit it off right off with her and was very, very interested and dated heavy. I got Ben on the bridges, paint bridges with me with Savage Paint Company, and he did well there. He was very, very fast and very efficient, and so the two of us were bridge painters together. And it was interesting this one time. Just let me tell you a quick story here. Ben and I had the same voice on the phone, and Ben had a date with Ann, and the reason I found out we had the voices alike is this one time all four of us were together at the house, and Ben and I were in the bathroom and everything, and the two girls, Talmadge and Ann, couldn't tell who was talking and who was singing and which one it was because our voices were alike. Well, anyway, Ben and I figured up, well, he's going on this date, and so we arranged to have me call Ann and act like I'm Ben, and we synchronized our watches so that Ben was at the door when I was making the phone call, and I could hear the doorbell ring, and she was so excited we just talked lovey-dovey stuff, and because they were already engaged, and so anyway she says, "Hold it a second, I need to answer the door," and here she was talking to Ben
on the phone.
She thought. And she answered the door, and there was Ben. And I could hear her scream on the phone, just absolutely screaming. Because she had no concept that she was talking to me instead of Ben. And well, anyway, it was a great marriage. They got married, and we did many, many things together when we were in that it was about a year or so that we were together. And then we went to Alaska, and then from Alaska down to California when I was in specialty training in orthodontics, which we'll cover in another video, but it was about 1 year into orthodontic training, and I was in the clinic at the time, and they said that you wanted on the phone, and I went to the phone, and I can't remember who called me.
I don't know either. I'm sure it was probably Dee.
No.
Somebody from their
It
ward
had
or
to be
something?
either Ann or somebody up there in Seattle. That Ben had fallen from the bridge painting it and was killed by hitting impact. And anyway, I have never had a situation where even the death of my mother wasn't as strong as that reaction to happen to me on the inside. Just my whole insides were shaking, sobbing. Just totally disbelief. And so we got on the plane, the two of us, and we flew to Seattle, where the accident happened on the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, out on the center span. And he was, I went down underneath and could tell how it happened. And what had happened is that he was moving the staging, which was very, very safe compared to what we used to.
That's what you walk on.
Right.
The planks.
Yeah.
Things like that. And
He had a motor on each end of it, and he was moving it, and his partner was up mixing the paint up on the roadbed, and he was moving it by himself. He had done it many, many times, and you throw the safety cable over the I-beam. The I-beams are about, 1.5 feet, 2 feet
Wide.
and you hold that, you push that cable over and pull on it, and
The
so
weight of it
Yeah.
makes a hook.
and then you take the power cable off, and the whole thing then is held onto it with this safety cable, because you're moving the power cable over so that when you transfer back again, you'll swing over more to move the staging, and you can do that. Well, anyway, when he threw it over, instead of hooking over the I-beam like that, he hooked over it, and it was like this.
Just
I
on the
could
edge
see
of
it.
it.
edge to edge. Mm-hmm.
And it held as long as he took the power cable off, and then I could see the scratch come all the way across here and just gouged the metal right out as that whole thing went down. And it just swung down, and so when I arrived there, the whole thing was hanging by the right beside the big tower that was holding the bridge up. And anyway, he fell 200 and some feet to water. It's about the same height as the Golden Gate Bridge, which is really a high bridge there. It's the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, just south of Seattle. And it crosses the ocean out into one of those islands out there. And anyway, he was killed on impact.
Well, and what he was wearing too was a suit that covered him, and it had the
Ties. Mhm.
ties at the ends of the arms so that the water, couldn't get through, and up around here and around his legs. And so when he hit the water, he didn't sink.
He didn't go into the water. It just kind of landed on
yeah,
it.
he was floating or
He
floated.
floated nearly a half a mile, I understand, as the tide pulled him out.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Before they could rescue
he
him.
was killed on impact. And anyway, Anne took it very, very hard because they had 4 children, and the youngest was only 2 months old. And they were all daughters, 4 daughters. And
Close in birth.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ann and I drove. The funeral we were going to hold clear down in Portland because that's where the burial is. And so she and I drove together all the way down. She just kept sobbing and asking why this would happen. And Talmadge stayed back and came down with the children or something. How did you do that?
I don't remember that at all. I do not remember that at all.
Anyway, she asked Bernie, my brother Bernie, and I to be the speakers at the funeral. And that was very difficult for me to prepare
Sure.
And I got strong feelings that Ben was a very, very in-depth genealogist and had spent a lot of money in buying books, old books that were out of print. Had a big library in the house of genealogy. And he and I belonged to the New England Genealogical Society, and we were able to order books in for 2 months at a time. And when we find out that we were related, he would actually he rigged up a camera over the table and was able to take a picture of every page in some of those rare books that were out of print. And so anyway,
They didn't have Family Search in those days.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was just the libraries in Salt Lake, and that's
Yeah.
all basically in those days. And that
anyway, the only thing I could tell Anne was that I really don't know why the Lord would do this or allow it to happen. But I told her, I says, give me 10 years and come and ask the question, and I'm sure we'll have the answer. Anyway, when I was on my knees praying as to what to say and everything, I got very strong feelings that on the other side, that there's a tremendous amount of work, and maybe as much or more than the amount of work we have to do on these genealogical ordinances in the temple ordinances all, and that it was a tremendous amount of work to be done, and that Ben would be well kept busy because of his knowledge and his testimony concerning it. Anyway, that's how I prepared the talk, and Bernie talked. And anyway, Anne, 5 years later, when we were set up in Boise, Idaho as an orthodontist, Anne moved to Meridian, Idaho. And so we got back close again.
Was she single?
She was
still?
single, and she met a returned missionary, lived there in Meridian. I think he is a little bit younger than Anne, but not much. And his name is
Alan
Crocker. Alan
Crocker.
Crocker.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And he married her with those 4 girls and had 4 more children, a boy and 3 girls. So it ended up 8
7 girls.
children, and 7 girls and 1 boy. And he raised them all. He became a bishop on the high council and things. But she never canceled the sealing with Ben. And there at the last, just 2 years ago when she died, Anne died, and we went to the funeral. But about a year before that, we visited, and I come right out and asked her, Anne, what did you want to do? She says, well, I want to stay sealed to Ben.
Yeah.
And so, and not only she sealed to him and stayed sealed to him, she is buried in the same plot. So now we have a double plot right there in
Portland.
yeah, it's just out of Portland, near the temple there, in the
Okay.
Portland Temple.
Okay.
And so it was it was a major funeral with Anne also. And it's a great story about Ben